Have you ever wondered what to say when somebody is speaking with you and they say, now's not a good time? Sales Ascender, what's happening? Sean here, and I'm back for another high ticket tune-up. And in this high ticket tune-up, we're actually going to dive deeply into something that I just started based on a lot of feedback I've gotten from a bunch of people. It's our SOS series. It's the Sales Objection series, SOS, right? So save the souls, save the professional salesperson, Sales Objection series. So today's question is a great one, and I'm just going to start off. I've got a huge list of them. I'm going to start covering on a daily basis. Today's one is this. It says, Sean, what do I say when they say, now's not a good time? And this can happen in several different places. So I'll give a little context of the first place that I think it would most likely happen is when you're at the end of, say, a discovery call or even a sales call, and the prospect says to you, oh, this is great. I love what you're doing, but man, now's just not a good time. And I remember getting this one a bunch when I was first starting into sales, and I never had a really strong or good answer. So today I'm going to give you two answers that will literally explode this question for you, and it'll give you the clarity that you need. Now, sometimes when somebody says, hey, now's not a good time, this is usually an indicator, at least in my experience, about 85% of the time, it's usually an indicator that there's not going to be a sale or a transaction in that particular phone call or that series, and that's fine. But we also, there's a 15% chance that we will be able to, overturn that part of the conversation. This is a fairly tough one to deal with, but the two things that you can do here, let's say you've gone through the entire sales conversation, you get to the end and they say, well, now it's not a good time. The first one is kind of a more advanced technique, so I'll give you that one first. As a sales professional, just kind of look dumb, act as a dummy, and just say, which means, that's it, just two words, which means, because this is then going to force the prospect to come back and say, well, da-da-da-da-da, and they're going to start spilling a whole bunch of stuff or making excuses. And then as a sales professional, you can very quickly decide what is real, what is not, right? So this is one that I use. You have to use it with a little bit of carefulness, because if you use the wrong tonality when you say it, people can get offended with it. So just be careful when you use that one. But it's very simple. It's just two words. It's which means, hey, now's not a really good time, which means. So that will get the prospect to continue talking. And the other one that most people start with is a great one, right? There's a lot of different ways to say this one, but depending on what comes out, now's not a good time. Maybe you've just dropped a price and they just got sticker shocked or whatever the case may be. Maybe they don't understand the value that you're going to be bringing to solve the problem, create impact in their world. So the other one is this, to say, okay, I understand. I'm totally with you that, but just so I get clarity on this, if we could wave a magic wand, that's the secret. Wave a magic wand and make this a good time. Like if now was a good time, man, what would that look like? And would you be willing to get started today? And what this does is it allows the prospect to reframe what they're doing. Say, oh, if I waved a magic wand and everything was perfect, and now they're going to share what's a good time, or now they're going to share the actual true objection that you need to dig into. And if you've done the conversation correctly and you've gotten to a place where you've done what we call the emotional close, which should happen roughly in the middle of your sales call, something where you understand, A, you want to work with that person because you like them and you trust them and they're a cool person, and B, you can solve a problem that they actually have with your product or service that you're offering, the emotional close should come through, and it should sound something like, man, I would love to work with you. I know I can create impact in your world, but the main question is, am I somebody that you want to work with? And when they say yes, you've now got the emotional close, and then we can go into the conversation and say something like, when you drop through, let's just figure out the rest of the details, and you go through, do you have the budget? How's the buying process work? And here's the pricing and all the other stuff. And then they say, now's not a good time. Well, when that happens, that's when I would say something like, man, just for 1 second, let's pretend if you could wave a magic wand and you could make this a good time. First of all, what does a good time look like? And if we could make this a good time, would you be willing to get started right now? And if they say yes, I'd be willing to get started right now if this was out of the way, or if whatever the case. And from there, you can say, well, let's talk a little bit more about that. Tell me some more. And how can I help you navigate that little thing to make it a good time? What does a good time look like? Another great question is, what's holding you back? when would be a good time to buy. Although if you use one of those two, like what's holding you back or when would be a good time to buy, you are conceding that the prospect is correct. And so one of the things I try to stay away from in the conversation is that. So the two things that I use when someone says now's not a good time, I say, which means. I always go to that one because it's just easy to remember for me. And the other one is the magic wand. And when you use these two things in conjunction or in your sales toolbox, you're going to do really, really great things. And so try this one out. Please let me know in a comment below. It looks like I got a couple comments coming through. Ashley said, thank you for this. Very quick and helpful info. Awesome. Well, you're welcome, Ashley. Great to see you. Hope you're doing great. And that's it, right? So it's just when somebody says now's not a good time, just turn around and say, which means, but say it with the right tonality because it'll work for you. Or if you want to go deeper and have the conversation, you say, totally understand. If we could wave a magic wand, would you be willing to, like put that aside? Like if it was good timing, would you be able to get started today? Yes, I would. Okay, what's holding you back? And then you can get into that part of the conversation where you can understand what is good timing. And then what I would do at that point, when you've established what the actual thing is at the end, you come back and you say something like, let me just go back to the question here so everyone can see it. You would say something like, great, get out your calendar. You said it's going to take roughly, the next month to get to a better place where it's good timing. Let's put something on the calendar. And it can just be a placeholder. That's fine. And then you book another appointment with them, right? That's called the clear future. And then just give one piece of homework to your prospect. And when they have that one piece of homework and they know when they're going to meet with you again, there's no mystification. There's no, I'm wondering what's going to happen. There's no, you go back to your business and your partners and your team and say, I don't know why that one didn't close. I just didn't get clarity on that. But if you ask them like, hey, wave a magic wand, put that on the side. When would be a good time? What's holding you back? Get into that true objection. Now you have some data you can bring back to your team and they're going to say, oh, that's cool. I get it. That's cool. You have another appointment with them in 30 days. And that's it. So that's how I handle this one. When they say now's not a good time, and that 15% that does close, what I'll share with you is that when you start getting into that conversation, which means, and they're going to say this, and this, and you say, okay, well, let's talk about that. Let's get deep into that. Sometimes you can actually walk through and give them some solutions that they might not even thought of before and say, oh, if I could do that tomorrow, you could do that tomorrow. Well, if we got that out of the way, would you be able to get started with us? Yes. Oh my gosh, that's great. Let's do that. Let's check in another 3 days. She said it's going to take you about a day. Boom, got them, right? So that's exactly how to handle now is not a good time. So that was today's sales objection series. I'm excited to go through this. I've got a whole list of all the most common objections. Now is not a good time was one of the number ones that did come through. So let me go ahead and say this. You've just been tuned in today's sales objection series with Sean.